enough to express the experience.
Fantastic.
There you go.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christine Hancock. I'm one of the account managers from the Growth Hub. And I just wanted to give you a brief introduction to us as an organisation for those of you who are new. So there are 38 Growth Hubs in the UK, and we're kind of a one-stop shop for business support and business guidance. And we here operate across this region, so across everywhere from East Staffordshire down to the Wyre Forest, with Greater Birmingham and Solihull included. So our team is made up of business advisors, who are usually the first point of contact, and account managers, and who offer more in-depth advice. And we also have a skills hub, which can help you if you're looking at apprenticeships or upskilling existing staff. So I suppose the most important thing to stress is all our advice is free to access and fully funded and impartial. So the previous slide showed my colleagues in the account management team, and it was just to give you an idea really of the sort of specialist advice we can offer. So we can help companies from particular sectors, so for example manufacturing, food and drink, or business and professional services, and also wider things like business resilience and growth. We also have access to finance specialists who can help with helping you access funding or finance and grants as well. And we work as, we have a huge range of partners. So we work with both private sector and public sector partners, such as universities, banks, Department for International Trade, and many more. So we can help you also access their support. So we're kind of like a one-stop shop for support. I'm happy to have a chat after this with anybody who wants to find out more. I won't go through all the different details of the range of support, but I did just want to mention that we offer obviously tailored practical solutions for each business. In fact, we're running this masterclass, like all our other events, in response to what local companies have told us they want and need to address any challenges they've got. The only other thing I wanted to mention was that we are currently recruiting for a program called the Peer Networks program, which is, we ran a pilot in January and we're running phase 2 now following the success of that, where we put companies in groups or cohorts of like-minded businesses, and it's led by trained facilitators who will help them to address specific challenges, whether it's around HR, marketing, or anything at all, growth. Then you work together with the trained facilitator to create solutions to your challenges. So that's all I'm going to say today about the Growth Hub, but as I say, happy to follow up with you individually afterwards. And I'd like to hand over now to Fiona. So welcome, Fiona. Fiona's the founder of the Professional Growth Company, and she's an international leadership development facilitator and communication expert. She's got a background in management and has worked in a huge range of companies, both in the UK and in the Middle East, from the NHS to the Dubai World Trade Center to Nestle. And she's going to refresh our approach to working and communicating online today. So over to you, Fiona.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, 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 everyone. Now, what I'd just first of all like to ask you to do, can you put in the chat box, where are you joining us from and what company you're from, so that everyone can get a little idea of who's here, because one of the interesting things about working online, working virtually, is it's the equivalent of networking in a lot of cases. And it's really good to use this. So even if you want to put your LinkedIn profile or your email address, if you feel that's appropriate, please do just put it in the chat box, because that way you can keep in touch with other people that are here. Also, it's really interesting when we go through a situation like this, if you want, if someone comes up with something, you can actually email them, you can chat to them direct, so you can look up their name in the chat and you can send them direct messages. So it is a way that we can really network and keep together. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to deliver this today, Christine. Why are we still talking about working virtually? People are thinking, yeah, okay, things are changing, we're all starting to come back to work. But the interesting thing is that many companies are now considering adopting a hybrid working model with a mix of in the office and working virtually. In fact, and this was really interesting, there's a lot more of it. If you start looking up the business press, you will start to see this happening constantly. The 1st of June 2021, a policy allowing 64,000 HM revenue and custom staff to work from home for at least 2 days a week permanently came into force. So if HMRC are now bringing people into working from home, there's been a huge shift, because these were the type of organisations that wouldn't consider that. But they're basically saying they want to recognise the benefits of working of smarter ways. Working this way, at least in part, brings a new set of challenges for business leaders, known as especially around communicating over different working times and locations. Now, my business was, I work in association. Now, I've got the professional growth company, but I work as an associate with a lot of companies internationally. And I was actually out in Dubai for about 8 years and built up a lot of business out there. So for the 2 years before the pandemic hit, my business model was working as an associate for other companies, basically in the Middle East. So I would be flown out every 6 weeks. And I would stay for 4 or 5 weeks, and I would move around the Middle East, and then I would come back. Now, on the 20th of March 2020, I remember looking at my diary, looking at my emails, and my business collapsed, completely collapsed. Every single thing, I was booked right up to the end of 2021, and everything that was booked to the 2021 was cancelled. Now, can I just ask those of you who don't have your cameras on, is it possible to put your cameras now? No, some of you in work it's not possible. Let me just show you something. If you don't have your camera on, this is how you're appearing. This is what people see. It's the equivalent of sitting with a paper bag over your head. So we want to be able to see your faces, because this helps us. Even if you're not comfortable on camera, you've got to start getting used to being comfortable on camera. So I went from despair, going, what am I going to do, to within a week starting the first. I just went to the people that I knew, the companies that all booked me, said, right, let's see how we can do this. Can we do this online? And guess what happened? Yes, we could. We couldn't just do everything online as we were doing it. In a lot of times, we were actually doing it better. Because what's starting to happen with online communication is companies are now looking at small chunks of things being done and people going away and integrating things. So we're completely changing the way we're working. So today what we're doing, this is a 90-minute session, and today we're really talking about some of the tips that you can have to help you show up without the paper bag on as a business professional, show up exactly the same way as you would in person. Now, I am an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming trainer. NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is the methodology of how we create behavior. Now, when we look at neuroscience, the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and imagination. And let me prove this to you. Imagine I have a lemon here, and I'm going to cut this lemon in half. It's a big juicy lemon. I'm cutting this lemon in half, and I'm taking this lemon and I'm squeezing and I'm drinking the lemon juice. Either put your hand up or just put the little hand sign to say, did it almost feel as if you were drinking lemon juice? Who felt that? Okay, we're not in the same room. There is no lemon. So when the brain gets used to the fact we're communicating over camera, it actually starts to believe the only thing that's missing is smell, touch, and taste. That's the only sense that's missing. But these senses get compensated because we actually believe we're in the company of that person. So this is what it becomes interesting, the way you can connect with people. And I'm going to show you some really cool tips for connecting over camera. So helping others take personal responsibility and ownership. So some of the things we're going to cover is the tools, but also when we're working virtually, people have to take personal responsibility. There's a big mind shift goes in here about old ways of managing to new ways of leading. And also the biggest thing that's coming in is trust. Being able to trust people to be able to do what they say they're doing. So we're going to show you some tips and how to help that to happen. So we're covering tips for communication virtually, building trust and managing expectations, clarity and accountability for deliverables, creating actionable goals and objectives, and managing and tracking objectives, and moving from a problem-focused to a solution-focused mindset. Now, let me just share with you in the chat box. I'll just go, if you go onto the chat box, and I will share with everyone now. I've got everyone in the meeting. We've got a workbook for you, and it's a writable PDF workbook. Let me see. It's leading others virtually. There you go. Okay, you should be, it's just going on to chat now. If you go into the chat box, you should be able to open and download that. Anyone who can't open it or anyone who doesn't see it, can you please email Christine and we'll arrange for that to be sent out to you. I don't share my slides, but we will share the recording of this. But everything that is in the workbook, everything that's in the slides is in a workbook. So we've actually set it up for something that you can take away and use. So one of the things that has really proven to be very powerful is checking in with others. Working remotely can be lonely, so making your communication as human as possible helps people feel valued and connected. Before speaking about something, just asking someone, how are you doing, can be so powerful. You can also add a quick email, how you doing to emails, especially when you've not contacted someone for a while. I was involved with a few companies. We did a series of workshops, mainly for companies in the Midlands, over the last couple of years. And there was someone came on there that was from a housing authority, and their KPIs had gone, the achievement of KPIs had actually increased. So people were overachieving in their KPIs compared to what they were doing in the office. And they actually said, what has happened? What has changed to allow this to happen? And they narrowed it down to managers actually checking in with their people to see how they were. Just someone asking how people were. And I've had lots and lots of examples of that with lots of companies I've worked with, that when we talk to people, do you feel more valued? Do you feel more appreciated? Yes, because their managers are caring for them more. Now, you've always got to remember when you're actually working virtually with someone, you're entering a home. Now, not all of you are at home just now, but when people are working from home, you're going into their home. So respect the fact you're being invited into people's homes. Some people are comfortable in this and some are not. So you may have to teach people about using Zoom, if you're using Zoom or Team, using virtual backgrounds. Speak about possible interruptions from family, children, and pets. Children are only being curious. There's nothing worse than a mum or a dad at home getting embarrassed because a little person has walked into the room. You've got to be able to turn around and say, hello, how you do? Come and say hello. It's okay. This is what we're learning. This is what we've been put into unbelievably challenging circumstances. But the thing that's coming out of it is the fact about being human, being connected. Also, you've got to be culturally sensitive. There are some cultures where people wouldn't be comfortable to invite you into their home. And there's some cultures where people are dressed differently in the home environment than they would be in the outside. So you've got to be sensitive to that, and you've got to be sensitive and give someone plenty of time to get organized. Let them know you'll be wanting them to come onto camera. Also, being camera ready. Be ready as if you're working in the office. Assume that you will use your camera. And I even talk about things like the whole way through lockdown, perfume. I've always got my perfume on. Now I'm talking to you, can't smell perfume. But perfume helps me feel professional. It is part of everything I do to set myself up into a professional state. Things like having a shower, makeup on. Yeah, guys, you can put your makeup on as well if you want. And it's very much a case of turning up as if you were in the office. Now, we're not talking fully formal. Very often that isn't appropriate, but just comfortable in a way you would be in maybe a casual dress down day. Also, 70 to 80% of our communications through body posture, gestures and voice tone. But more importantly, when we can see and hear both together, you've got a far greater understanding. So that's why having the camera on is so important. Now, I know some of you can't put your camera on. That's okay. That's absolutely fine. Always let someone know if there's a reason why you can't put your camera on. Seeing someone makes it so much easier to communicate because you're picking up on their non-verbal signals. And to me, because we have got a slight delay in the camera, you actually can pick up more non-verbal signals on camera than you can in real life. It's quite fascinating. Okay. Also, speak to the camera, not to the video. Now, we've got a few people here. I'm going to talk to James. Now, James, you're not with your camera on just now. That's okay. But I'll just look at James. James is his screen, his part on the gallery. He's right down bottom left-hand corner for me. So if I'm speaking to James, or Fiona, you've got your camera, so I'll speak to Fiona. Hi, Fiona, how are you doing? Okay, so I'm talking to Fiona. Fiona, do you feel as if I'm actually talking to you direct at the moment?
No, you're looking down at something that you're working on, probably.
I'm not looking down at something I'm working on. I'm actually looking directly at you.
Right.
Okay, but I'm looking at you on the gallery. Okay, because I work with gallery view when I'm doing any delivering. I don't work with my spotlighted view. So notice what happens now. Fiona, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to speak to you.
Feel the difference?
Yes.
And there's something magic you can do in camera that you can't do in real life. When you speak in singular, so if the opposite example, hi guys, how are you all doing? Okay, so hi guys, how are you all doing? I'm talking about a group of people, okay, in quite an informal way. Hello, how are you? How are you doing? I want you to be able to get the best tips that you can use today to be able to allow you to communicate in ways that will really surprise you in how easily you can connect with people. What happened there? Did everyone feel as if I was talking to you individually? Put your hand up if you felt as if I was talking to you individually. I was using you. I was looking at my camera and pointing to my camera. So when you point your camera, when you say you, when you look straight at the camera, you are talking directly to everyone who's watching your screen. So it doesn't matter if it's one person or 2,000 on the, that are actually watching what you're doing, you're still getting that one-to-one connection. And that is not possible in real life. Have the camera centered at eye level. I actually have got a small table that I use on top of my desk. It's an Amazon table I got, that my computer sits on a table to bring me to eye level. I was not very well for a few days and I was working from my bed. I had to put my foot up and I worked with a cushion. I found the same way, and the way I was set up, nobody knew really what I was doing. I still had my camera set up at the same way. So you want to be at eye level. I've had a few meetings where, unfortunately, I've been looking at certain parts of people's bodies that I wouldn't really be wanting to look at, or you're looking straight up someone's nose. It's not professional. So it's making sure you're looking straight at the camera and maybe even adjusting your camera. Now, I'm saying adjusting your camera because, if possible, get yourself a webcam. Webcams, the webcam I have here, now let me just show you. I've actually moved my webcam to the side, and then I've moved my webcam to the other side. So you can actually move the camera where you want it to be in direct line to who you're talking to in the gallery, and this will seem as if someone's so David, I've now moved my camera directly on top of you. There's David and Helen and Leanne. So when I'm looking into this camera at the moment, even if I'm not consciously looking into the camera, if I'm looking at you, you will still feel as if I'm talking to you directly. And also, good webcams normally have good microphones, so you can get it just helps keep clarity. And I've already talked about use you instead of us. You can, of course, you can use us and we as part of the team, but there's something very powerful. You can do this. You'll be able to do this. And video calls can be magical when you really connect with others. Speaking to camera means you're able to connect in a personal way with more than one person simultaneously. Now, you've got to turn up your energy. You're only that size, okay? You're all that size on the screen. When you're actually doing, in fact, just do it now. I want you to take yourself, if it's appropriate, give yourself a shake. Let me see you giving yourself a shake. Some of you won't want to do it, but turn your energy up, stand up, and just move. Stand up, move. Let me see you moving. That's it. Move, move, move. Get that in. Oh, look, everyone's coming back down again. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Energy makes energy. Your energy is transferable over the screen. Thank you, David. Your energy is totally transferable over the screen. It can seem like the most ridiculous thing in the room you're in, but believe me, that really affects the people that you're talking to. I was in a conference last week and all the speakers were talking like this. And if people are just talking in normal voices, it actually almost goes into slow motion. It goes into slow motion when you're talking. So energy is really, stay attentive in group meetings and know you're always on camera, even when you're not speaking. So you'll see people in business meetings, and they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing that. And meanwhile, someone's talking, but they're on screen and people are actually seeing them doing that. Use non-verbal signals and camera range. If you know you use your hands to express things, and when we work with NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Program, you actually use your hands to express things very, very precisely. So if I'm doing things like, okay, we're going to start here, and then we'll do this, and then we'll finish up here, I make sure my hands, the movement of my hands is within the camera. Because that way you're really and what that's doing, that's actually spatially sorting out information in people's brains. So they know there's the first thing, then the second thing, and then it's followed by the third thing. And then let people know what you're doing off camera. And thank you, Fiona, you gave us a wonderful example of that. I was looking at you and you were saying it looked as if I was doing something else. So I can do something. If I've got, for example, a report that I'm working with, say I'm just having a meeting with people and we're talking about a pro, I will say, right, I'm just looking at this report here. Because if I suddenly just do that, I have disconnected. So you've almost got to give a verbal commentary on what you're doing so that you can keep people engaged and people know what's happening. Now, screen sharing, you're already seeing me doing this a little bit. Screen share, use visuals. It's much easier to discuss something you're looking at rather than trying to describe something. And also teach people to maybe do small presentations for things. Like, for example, I was doing some work with a company yesterday where we're preparing some training, and it was much easier for us to share what we were doing and make the changes, make the edits on a shared screen than try and do over email. But when you're talking, come out of the shared screen. Can you see how I've now come out of the shared screen? Because there's nothing worse than this going on, and then someone moves on to the next subject and they're busy talking about the next subject, and all people are seeing is things about the screen sharing. So encourage others to use visuals and teach how to share the screen. Okay, so we're going to go into our first breakout exercise in a few moments. Building trust and managing expectations. Sorry, before I go on any further, any questions? So these are just tips, and you've got all the tips in the workbook. Anyone have any questions with what we've just covered? Yes, David?
Just one question. You know, I do a lot of this kind of stuff myself, and I see when people are disengaged, I'm just wondering, why do they turn up for a webinar if they're not really interested in being in it? Because it's an insult to the speaker as well, I would imagine.
Not really. It's people very often get told to come on to something. And what happens is, and this is why it's important. Thank you for the transition we did today from webinar to meeting. Lots of people are used to webinars. Now, webinar is something like, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm watching a webinar, I will be doing an earning. I'll be doing other things because I'm not expected to be engaged. Okay. It's something that a webinar is very much presenter focused with very passive taking part. When you do meetings like this, when you do interactive meetings, it's all to do with the setup. And yes, you can use my, David asked me to use my paper bag. Yes, you can use my paper bag example. I was working with a company in the Middle East, a big organization, and they said, we never get people to turn on their cameras. And I said, okay, we'll do a session with you and we'll get people to turn on the cameras. And they said, okay, if you can get 5 out of 150, we will be delighted. I said, right, before we even start, let me have a look at your invitation. And the invitation said nothing to do about engaging, being connected, putting on your camera, being expected to take part. So I changed the invitation to say, we're delighted to invite you along. You know, we value your time. You're expected to take part. And then we did this. I told them, I said, we'll do the paper bag exercise. And we actually had 99% put their cameras on and kept their cameras on for an hour and a half. So it's expectations. It's all to do with setting up, because lots of people expect to come on and just be spoken to and not have to take part. And for a lot of people, when they suddenly, oh, you mean I've got to actually show up, and they're not ready to come onto camera. So there's a lot of, has that answered your question, David? Because there's a lot of preparation you've got to do to get people connecting.
I think maybe we should, instead of calling it a webinar or something Zoom meeting, we should call live discussions, which means that everybody can engage if they wanted to.
Live and interactive session. Yeah. We've called this a masterclass, a live and interactive masterclass. And that's why when we've realized and that happens, we realized with the wrong setup, that just gets changed quickly. So we're now on a live and interactive. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We're going to go on to next one here. So creating a flexible culture requires expectations to be managed and being able to trust the work will be done to the standard required in the time agreed. This is a two-way process. People need to take personal responsibility for doing what they say they will do. This, for me, I've been in business more years than I care to remember, but I've been delivering this type of training for, not the virtual training, but I've been delivering behavioural training for over 30 years. And for me, the biggest shift that we're seeing now is asynchronous communication. In other words, work not being done at the same time, work all being done at different times. When you are managing people in an office, you're there. You can see who's working, you can see who's not working. You can see what's happening, you can see what's not happening. When you're working remotely, you cannot replicate that. Because if you replicate that, you start harassing people. Because if you're trying to replicate that, you're emailing every 5 minutes. Have you got this done yet? Is that finished? What are you doing now? Where are you? Why were you not at your computer? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? That is going to set up total barriers for being able to work. Companies such as Microsoft have been working with asynchronous communication for years. There's a lot of companies have been doing this for years, especially international companies. They work 24 hours and they all do their bit and pass it on so that the work's being done 24 hours a day around the globe. So we've got to look at some of the things that make this happen. So we're going to do a little exercise here, and you can take a picture of this, take a photograph, because this is not in your workbook, so you know what you're doing. I'm going to put you in groups, and I want you to discuss What does someone have to do for you to trust them? And there'll be different things for each of you. What do you have to do for someone to trust you? Okay, so if you've all got a photograph of that. So what does someone have to do for you to trust them? And what do you have to do for someone to trust you? And let's just put you in breakout rooms. Has everyone used breakout rooms before? Put your hand out if you've not used a breakout room before. Okay, now breakout rooms, I'm going to see we've got one. Just going to count you really quickly. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So let us go into 8. It's going to 4 breakout rooms. No, I'm going to put us into 5 breakout rooms. Okay, now I'm going to just create these automatically. So when I press automatically, you'll either get the signal that says join the room, or you'll just find yourself go and you'll just go through the ether and go, oh, where have I gone? And you'll just turn up in another room. Okay, it will look for a few seconds as if, oh, I've been taken somewhere. We're going to give you 6 minutes.
It's like a quantum leap. It'll be a quantum leap.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
The lovely thing about breakout rooms, especially those of you who do training, is they're confidential. So people are not sitting, if anyone's ever been in a training room and you're all in breakout groups working and you see another group's doing a lot better than you're doing, you start to doubt yourself. Where when you're in a breakout room, you can't overhear anyone. So can we just put some boundaries around this? Because I think it's always very important to put boundaries. Whatever someone shares with you, please keep that confidential, because some of you might share quite confidential information about how you've trusted or how someone trusts you. You can use the examples, but never use the person's name. So can we all agree to that? Anything we do, because we're going to be doing some breakout room exercises later, but I always think that's important. The breakout rooms are not recorded, it's just the main room that's recorded. Okay, so I'm just going to create the rooms. I'm going to open, so let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, yeah, fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to open all the rooms and you can, okay, so we're just resuming the recording. How was that? How did you get on? Let's get a little bit of feedback.
Well, Laura and I did really well, didn't we? We sorted the world out, I think.
Yeah.
Laura is an amazing person, if I may add.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so what did you get? What did you discover from that? What were some of the things that came out? Who would like to go first?
Go on, Laura.
Yeah.
Share some of our wisdom.
Okay, I think the kind of general summary of what we talked about was that trust builds over time, and you can't pinpoint exactly when you decided to trust someone because it's the different factors. But the main elements we discussed were that you have to be human to be trusted. So it's about being empathetic to each other, and also authentic. So there was an example where a particular role had changed someone and made them appear more powerful, and they were less empathetic, and then that trust kind of diminished. So actually being true to yourself and not trying to be someone else can build that trust, make you trustworthy, and you trust other people as well. And
as human beings, we pick up when someone's not being true to themselves, when someone's not being genuine or authentic. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Who else? Oh, fantastic. Okay, 3 Fiona's on, great.
Yeah, I might have to pop off again when they.
That's okay. So
not, looking like I'm not listening.
No, that's absolutely fine. We know that people come in and out. So what else did you get from that?
Well, in our group, we were saying, came up with a good motto: trust people as you would trust yourself. I think that's really good. Do what you say you're going to do. And that's what makes us trust other people, that doing what they say they're going to do, turn up when they're going to say they're going to turn up.
Yeah, and especially from a business point of view, yes, you have to be able to know that someone will do what they say. Exactly. And if they don't do what they say, then you can address that. But and we're going to show you some things I'm going to show you some tools and techniques to help people start taking responsibility. So I've got another little exercise to do. Okay, so clarity, just moving on because we have a lot to cover. Clarity and accountable for deliveries. This is the shift that's happening, is when working virtually, we cannot control the time when work will be done. The focus moves to output and deliverables rather than hands-on managing. This is why communicating what specifically has to be done by what time is absolutely vital. And to do that, we need to trust someone that the work will be done by someone by the time they say it will, and that people take personal responsibility for doing what they say they will do in required time. The focus has to be in what is achieved by when, rather than focusing on how someone is working. Now, where this works is you may have, I'll take an example, because I've worked with this a lot. So a mother of some young children, okay? And this woman has decided, and it could be a father of young children, you know, it's not necessarily, it can be a father or mother, but they have decided that it's really important for them to have time when the kids get back from school or back from nursery through to their bedtime and get them settled, and they get them settled by about 7 o'clock. And they have made the choice that they want to work from 7 o'clock till maybe 10. So they might say, an email you need for the next day, I will get that to you by 10 o'clock tonight.
Yes.
Or I'll get it to you before you need it at 7 o'clock in the morning if you need it for 9. Now, as long as they've made that choice to work to that time, if that's suiting them, you can't jump in and say, oh, you shouldn't be working till 10 o'clock at night. Because maybe that person has already agreed that this is a way that they can focus and they can get more done when the house is quiet, and they're choosing to do that, and they're enjoying the fact they're getting that flexibility. Michael, you put your hand up. Have you got a wee comment?
Yeah, I just wanted, hello there. I just wanted to comment on what you've just said. So apparently my wife and I, we both are working normally from home, and we have 3 little children, and that actually works very similar way. You know, sometimes when it's just too much of everything at home, we just decide to work from, let's say, 8 o'clock till midnight, because we know it's going to be much more productive and you know, and easier for every one of us. The point is, the only point is that since she's doing, you know, accountancy job, and me, you know, doing things which can be done in a flexible way, it is doable. But for some people, some employees, some colleagues don't have that comfort. Because the work, or it's, I think it's actually industry based. It's industry dependent.
Oh yeah.
You know, some people cannot work in flexible hours in that comfort that, for example, myself or my wife has. My colleagues at work basically don't have such a huge flexibility, and I'm aware of that.
But sometimes we've got to understand that there's a lot of man-made or a lot of made-up deadlines that come where people say, this is going to be done by 6 o'clock tonight. Well, what are you going to do with it at 6 o'clock at night? You can't do anything with it at 6 o'clock at night. You actually mean it needs done for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning when we can do something with it. So sometimes we've really got to question deadlines that people are putting in to see whether they're correct or not. Sue?
Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking back again, back to that question about trust within building trust within the workspace. And I think what we have to remember as well is that there are boundaries, and the idea of people working flexibly and being productive, because I'm aware that people have different hours of the day where they're more productive than others, whether there's children involved or not. Some people are just naturally more productive later at night than first thing in the morning. So actually that might be their time to work. But I think what it calls for as well is consideration in terms of when you're communicating with people, because we're in a society now where everything is accessible and people almost expect instantaneous response.
Yes.
There is an expectation if you send an email at 10 o'clock at night or on a bank holiday weekend because you're working, that you're going to get a response at that time as well. And I just think that there can sometimes be this unintended pressure on the recipient to respond, especially if it's a manager or a director that's sending that email out of hours, that there's a pressure to respond, and therefore people end up actually not switching off and start going down the route of ending up being burnt out because they're continuously, there's no downtime. In the office of 9 to 5, the downtime was the office closed at 5 and people weren't able to respond until the following day. But now there's almost this 24-hour expectation of response. So I'm curious to know, how do you manage that?
You manage it by communicating. One of the ways that a lot of my clients manage it is they actually put at the bottom of the emails 24-hour response required. They expect things to be responded within 24 hours. Or they actually come to an agreement within the team or within the organization that between the hours of maybe 9 till 5, you'd be expected, but outside office hours, you're expected to respond the next day.
Fiona, Laura's put something in the chat that's good that she uses on her signature, her email. Just saying that I work flexibly whilst emailing now may suit me. Don't feel like you have to reply. It's just about getting the point across, isn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of different ways of communicating this. But think about what happens. Let's take it to an international level when we're working through different timelines. If you're working through different time zones, do you automatically assume that you've got to go? No, we don't seem to have the same pressure when we're working across time zones. So it's educating people. It's letting people know what fits and what's expected, and understanding there are certain people that are highly compliant and want to do everything right will go under pressure. And sometimes you've got to give extra support to people that to say, it's okay, this is when someone's working, but your response is required within your working time. I know with a lot of companies that I've been working with in the Middle East, they use the 24-hour reply, or the within, I'll get back to you within working hours, 9 till 5, or when the office is open.
If I may just quickly,
yes,
basically reply to concern of Sue. There are some tools, IT tools, which, for example, you can write an email on Saturday, on Sunday, but once you want to send an email, you just set up the time of the actual, how to say, postage of that email to your employees.
So you schedule what time your emails go out.
Yes, you schedule when that email is meant to basically be sent, which might be very useful. I used to use that software. It was called Boomerang, as far as I remember. Now I can see that even Outlook has that capacity introduced. So maybe that would somehow help people who, like me, for example, work weekends as well.
I do the opposite. I start working at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm an early morning person, and that's when and David's, yes. Now I'll take David and then I'll get on because we've got loads to go on with it.
Okay, just to recap my thoughts on this deadline, work hours, why do we actually work beyond the contracted hours, etc., etc. There's a host of things, right? We become recipient to a system that we never signed up for. The culture indoctrinates us. We don't want to be missed out. My wife can't hear me, she's out there, but she cannot rest until she answers everything, even when she comes home.
Yeah.
And I said to her, this is worse than addiction. And we become addicted because we have just conditioned ourselves just to
Okay,
respond
I'm
to
going to stop you there, David, because that can open up a whole other area, because this goes into behaviour. And there's some people, and I'm one of them, where I have to clear things before I can settle. And that's, I've accepted that, but that goes into a whole other behavioural area. And I'd love to move into that, but we don't have time to move into that at the moment. But that's a whole area that opens up. Some people, you know, my husband knows that I have to finish things before I can settle and move on to something else. But then it moves into the whole area of helping people manage their time and manage what works for them. Okay, and I'll show you what we're going to next. But thank you for that, David. Okay. And Fiona, can we take your, if you get something quick you wanted to say, or can you want to leave it and we'll take it later?
No, it was just a quick bit. Like, I learned some of this. I was quite poorly a few years ago, and the drug schedule meant that I was most awake at night and most lucid. Morphine does marvellous things to your brain. And I was sending emails out in the night, not thinking about it until somebody said, you do realise that my phone pings incessantly overnight because you're sending emails, because they didn't switch their notifications off. And it was just that bit of being considerate to when you're working, maybe the scheduling side of things. And I hadn't even thought about it. I thought I was just being productive to do it that way. So it's just a thought.
But then we've got to look at how people manage. Why are you sleeping with something that's pinging and waking you up all the time? Because anything
was a conversation I had as well.
Yeah, so it's managing how you want to be interrupted and not interrupted.
Yeah.
And that takes us down a whole rabbit's hole of behaviour patterns and people wanting to be totally connected all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to get us into the next exercise, using SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So specific, what is a specific task? Measurable, how are you measuring this? Attainable, do you have the skills, equipment, support, and time to achieve this? And this is really important because you've got to check the environmental. Do people have the printer? Do they have the toner? Do they have the scanner? Do they have everything they need if they're working from home? Does this task count towards your KPIs? How relevant is it? And time bound. So when we're working from home, we have to keep more focused on the value of the tasks we're doing, to the contribution to the big picture of the organization. So is what you're doing really contributing? Because there's a lot of creative stuff that we tend to be able to do more when we're working in an office. But when you're working from home, that can still be done, but keeping the actual building the trust that these important things that impact and everything else are getting done is so important. So what we're going to do here is, let me give you a couple of examples of goals. Not SMART. I will finish this report this week. Not SMART at all. I will email I'll email back to you, I would even add to that, the completed monthly sales report that I've got to you by 4 p.m. on the 28th of October. Not SMART, I will let the team know about working from home. SMART, I will talk to each of my team members by Wednesday, 28th of October to ensure that each person understands our new working home procedures. So what I'd like you to do, and again, if you take a photograph of this, in your groups, share a SMART goal for something that you will achieve this quarter. So I want you to say, I will or I am. I will achieve such and such by, and give a specific date and time. And if it's maybe for July, what day and date in July? So Wednesday, the 12th of July. And I don't know if Wednesday, the 12th of July is right, but actually get the day, the date, and maybe even a time. Now, what I want you to notice is what happens. How do you feel when you verbalize the goal that you're going to achieve? There's something, those of you who coach, the power of coaching is getting people to verbalize. If I say, for example, I do quite a lot of work with Christine. If I say to Christine, okay, Christine, could you get that slide share back to me by next week? And Christine goes, yeah. What's going to happen? We don't know, because there's nothing, and I don't know where that has landed. I don't know if it's landed inside Christine or if it's landed over here somewhere. So I can go back on the Tuesday and say, Christine, have you got that slide deck ready or that presentation ready? And she goes, oh, I thought you meant it this week. I won't have it ready till Friday. Okay. Or someone could say, I never heard that. Oh, you mean a presentation? I thought you meant. So we naturally delete, distort, and generalize. We only pick up a fraction of what people say to us. And when you understand the methodology behind that, is really, really important that you get someone. So I would then say, Christine, when what do you need to get back? What do we need to do? What do you need to get back for tomorrow? Say. So Christine would then say, just tell me something, Christine. You just come off your microphone, just say, I'll get the something done to you by 3 o'clock tomorrow.
So I'll get the slides to you by 3 tomorrow. How about that?
Okay, and Chris says, look what's happened to Christine's physiology, because she's actually just had to make something up there and she's not quite sure because I put it on the spot and I did it deliberately. So you will tell you will tell from the voice tone if someone really is going to do that or not. But the thing is, if someone has said it, you then have what I call the lawyer's excuse. You can then, if it doesn't happen, so you trust that they're going to do it, they've said it. If it doesn't happen, you then go back and you can say to them, you said to me, and then you just say, so what stopped you? In a non-accusatory, just a general, so what stopped you? Because it could have been other work came in, something else came in, it could have been something that, was unavoidable, stop them. So you're going to take, it's 8 minutes past and we finish at 12:30. So we're just going to do 10 minutes here. I'll put you back into breakout rooms, and I've just shooken you up a little bit. I'll just open all the rooms. Just share a goal with someone and say, I am or I will do, and the date. You can look up your calendar, look at the day, date, and maybe even year and month. But just notice how it feels when you commit to that verbally. Okay, so off you go.
View it, the reasons why.
Yeah. So how did it feel to actually say it out loud?
A little bit scary, to be fair, because I've been promising to do it since blooming December and I still haven't done it because everything else. Yeah.
Let us know how you got on with that, because this is it. There's something about standing up and opening your mouth and saying, I will do this.
Yeah, exactly.
You're making a verbal commitment, and this is the one that really builds into trust. So did everyone get to share? So I know you were doing networking and everything as well. That's fantastic, absolutely fabulous. But did you all understand that the whole principle behind this is really about letting people take responsibility and verbalize what they're going to achieve, giving them the benefit of the doubt, as we sometimes say, or should I say trusting them that they will do that. And then you can address if it doesn't happen, but you gradually get into the habit. This is when organizations start to work very well remotely, whether it's a very small business or what's a big organization. It's when people are able to be trusted to get on with their job without having to have a manager actually standing over them all the time. Now, I'm very aware we lost about 10 minutes at the beginning, so I'm just going to go into the next part. This is in your workbook. We've given you an example of a tracking form. So this can, and this is not to track every single task people do. It's the main complete monthly sales report, prepared for the final presentation, sent to Jim Shaw. By that date, get Susan Shaw to compile the Midlands, Yorkshires and London area figures. So that person has identified they need some support. And again, when we're working remotely, letting people know the support you need, because some people struggle on their own. But you can use this tracking form is actually used by about 5 companies I've worked with. And there's different forms. You can use shared documents, you can use Google Share. There's so many different platforms where you can actually share and you can update what you're doing and everyone can see it. But again, the thing that hasn't happened here is we can't have micromanaging where people have to actually log every single thing they're doing, because that's showing non-trust. Unless you're in an organisation where that is important. So, for example, what Helen, in Helen's situation as a nurse, there's certain things, you know, that have to be logged. But you've got to really identify within your team or within your organisation, what are the priorities that we're working with here. So some of the things you've got to consider working from home, the working environment, and this is a whole other area, but I just wanted to cover it with you. How are people working? As we're getting into more of the hybrid working, organisations are responsible for the working environment that they're setting up for their people. So it's producing the chairs that are right, they're working their desks and their computers to the right height. I mean, if a company's going full time into partially working from home, it's not acceptable to have people working from ironing boards with their computer set up there. That was okay. We were in a crisis and that was acceptable, but that cannot be accepted for health and safety reasons as we go along. Team building, employee welfare, that's one of the things we're talking about, performance management. So there's all these different things that you've got to consider. So what we've done is, again, this is in the workbook, so I'll just do this quickly. Very quick bi-weekly meetings, just quickly talking to people, agreeing deadlines that individuals set themselves. And we saw some lovely examples of that when I was coming in and out of the rooms. Smart goal setting, KPIs that are communicated. So actually getting the KPIs communicated and owned by the employee. Employees responsible for updating weekly. So you put the responsibility on for the updating to the person, rather than waiting, how are you doing? What have you achieved? And someone else is updating it all. Make other people responsible for doing their own updates. That's another way of just putting the responsibility on the person. Performance objective management, again, set objectives that are smart and achievable. Supporting individuals to achieve their potential, because one of the things we've got to look at when we're working virtually is you can't have this sort of performance management, people go into objectives and all this, oh, you know, they're checking everything, every single thing that you do. There's a different way of doing that. So it may be people just need support to get used to this. I know we've been doing this for a while, but a lot of people are still thinking it's temporary. So maybe it's spending a day online with someone. Maybe it's spending, there's more training to be done about little tips like how to use the camera, how to, you know, the actual physical things that people have to learn, because sometimes people can stop doing work because of this tiniest thing. They get stuck somewhere. They go, oh, I don't know how to share my screen. And that can stop everything happening and they can feel silly. So again, it's helping people understand we're all learning. Providing all the tools, knowledge and training required to meet the objectives. Helping the individual recognize their role in contributing to the company. This is huge, helping them feel valued. Listen to, understand and appreciate and value everyone you work with. And remember, this is about getting results and empowering staff and getting the best from your team. So we're just going to do one little exercise, but I'm going to do last exercise, but I'm going to do this as a group because of time. Our brains are compelled to answer any question we ask. I'm going to say that one again because that's huge. Our brains are compelled to answer any question you ask. So if you're telling yourself, I won't be able to do this, you're absolutely right. If you can say, I'll find a way to do this, you're absolutely right. Both these questions activate different parts in the brain. So asking good questions will get great results. So what I'd like you all to do, I'd like you to, if you've got a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, that's fantastic. Choose a problem and write down, ask yourself, why is this a problem? And write down 3 reasons why it's a problem. Because what your brain will go because. Now, we're doing this exercise with everyone here to show you how this works. I will then take you to the next part that you can do with other people, but we do this part first to show you how this works. So, and if you get stuck, just ask yourself, and what else? Because if you've only got one thing, it's not.
Sorry, Fiona, can you just sort of go through that again? Find a problem.
You ask yourself, so you've got a problem that you've got, something you haven't, it's a problem for you that you haven't solved, and you say to yourself, why is this a problem? and write down 3 reasons as to why it's a problem. Why is it a problem? I don't want you to answer out loud. I just want you to write it down.
I genuinely can't think of a problem I have.
Okay, that's okay, but plenty of people will have. If you did have a problem, think of one.
Well, so you made my day.
I can give you plenty.
I was going to
give
say,
you one.
One of mine.
Okay. If you don't get that just now, that's okay. That's okay. We can go to the next part. But as everyone else, you're all getting. I don't want you to go any further than 3 reasons. But are you all getting up to 3 reasons as to why this is a problem? Or it could be, I can't do this. Why can't you do it? Give 3 reasons why you can't do it. Because when you're answering the question why, you always come up with a because. So put your hand up as soon as you've got 3 things, 3 reasons. Or if we got just an absolute room full of solution-focused people. That's okay. Yeah. Okay. So fantastic. The reason I wanted you to do that was just to show you what happens to your brain. You actually focus into the problem. Yeah. Now, can you go to www.problem and buy 5 kilos of problem? So problems don't exist. Problems are only a perspective. Okay. So thinking of the same scenario, I want you now to say to yourself, what has to happen to resolve this situation? Or what has to happen to resolve this? Or what has to happen to change that situation? And write down 5 things that you can do differently. And one of the things could be, I don't have to do anything. So just brainstorm with yourself and write down 5 things.
I have done this exercise before.
Okay.
And I came to a conclusion for myself. As you said, problem is a perspective. Mm-hmm. But if I don't look at it as a problem, then it's someone else's problem. And I feel like what irritates me is that I get irritated when I'm around people who are just making a big deal about something which is not a big deal.
According to whom?
According to David Andrew.
No, yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, because something is easy when you know how, and something that's not a problem for you can be a big problem for someone else.
Two sides to the same coin. Two sides to the same coin.
So remember, the reason I'm teaching this technique is to help people become solution focused, to help people start taking more responsibility. So put your hand up when you've got five things that you can do. So what has to happen to resolve that situation? And if you get stuck, just say, and what else? And what else until you've got 5. And as soon as you've got 5 different things you can do, put your hand up. Okay, yeah. Go one more, see if you can do one more, Joan. Just asking what else. Thank you, Fiona. Just asking what else. And remember, one of the things could be, I don't need to do anything about it, or I can delegate it. Or I can do it next week, or I don't have to think about it just now. You're just playing with the brain. All we're doing is playing with the brain. Okay. Now, those of you who've got more than 4 or 5 things of different ways to resolve a situation, am I correct? You've got more ways of resolving the situations than you have reasons for why it's a problem. And all we did was change the question, and it's a really specific question. When you ask what has to happen to resolve this situation, I'm not saying what do you have to do? Because the minute I say what do you have to do, you can say, well, I don't know, I'm stuck. But when you say what has to happen, you will see people start searching in their brain. Well, I can ask for help. I can see who else can do it. I can go and look up and see if I can find some information on the internet. So what you're doing is you're sending the brain into searching mode for possibilities. So what I would like you to do, I'm just aware, are we okay for 5 more minutes? Is everyone okay, happy for 5 more minutes? We'll just go 5 minutes over time. Joan, could you help me on this one? I'd like you to assist me on this one. I want you to come to me and say you've got a problem, but really go into, make it as if it's the biggest problem in the world. Just say, Fiona, I've got a problem.
Oh, I've got a big problem, a really big problem, and I just don't know what to do.
Okay, so what's your problem, Joan?
I think it's
right.
because
I don't want her to go into anything else, right? So what I did, I matched. Joan said, "Oh, I've got a problem," and I matched her. What's your problem? And the reason I stopped you, because by saying what's your problem, I would have got all the reasons. Joan could keep going now, giving me all the reasons as to why this is a problem. Okay. So come to me again with the say, "Oh, I've got a big problem."
Got a big problem, Fiona.
Okay, so what needs to happen to resolve this, Joan?
I need to get excited about the end result so that I can get on.
She doesn't even have to go any further. Who heard the difference in her voice tone? Because I didn't collapse into the problem with her. I didn't call it a problem. And I said, what needs to happen? And then I would just let you go. That one, then I was saying, what else? And what else? What else? That's all. I go for 5 what else's. And then I would then say, okay, what do you believe is the best one to get started with? And Joan would then tell me what the best ones to get started with. And she has taken total responsibility. I have taught this in organizations where we've changed the culture within 6 months. Because behavior patterns cascade through an organization. And when your manager starts, when you start going to your manager and your manager said, okay, so what needs to happen to resolve that? And you're getting courage to come up, and then you're being allowed to, your manager might help you make the decision in the end. And what I've seen happen is people then start coming to their manager saying, actually, I had a problem and there's a couple of things I want to run by you. So they're already coming up, you know, they're wanting the final decision on some of the solutions they've come up with. Then they start doing the same thing with their people. And within 6 months, you can have this huge change where people are starting to think for themselves. So that, thank you, Joan, for that. That's another way that it becomes massive, how you can really help people just by the questions you ask. Take responsibility. I love it. Fiona says, Fiona Wilson once said to me, someone said to me, don't give me a problem, give me a solution. Yeah. Now, some people, but this is another way of getting people to do that without, it's quite a sneaky way of getting people to do that, where you actually can change their behavior. Okay, so any questions with that one? I know we're going quickly here. I just want to do the final bit and then we can finish up. And this is all in your book. Sorry, just can I say, why I asked you to get 3 questions was to demonstrate to you that when you're thinking about the problem, you will come up with the reasons for the problem. But when you use this technique, you don't ask someone to write down the problems. When you're using this technique, all you say is, okay, what needs to happen to resolve that situation? And keeping your tone light, keeping your tone really sort of not dropping in. Fiona, do you have a question? Fiona Wilson, do you have a question? Or was that just your hand up from before? That's fine. Okay. Okay, so just to finish off, helping others to learn. We're all having to learn new ways of doing things. Know will be really comfortable online and some not. We need to support and learn from each other. Ask people how, sorry, that's a mistake there. Ask people how they like to be communicated to, and let others know how you like to be communicated to. Some people still like the phone, especially people you're working with. They don't want to be appearing in camera all the time. Sometimes just the phone, you can be more relaxed in the way you answer things. Be comfortable with being confused, because that means you're learning. When your brain is confused, it means you're learning. Be empathetic with the conditions of others and what challenges they may face working remotely. Okay, so I'm Fiona Campbell. You can find me at the Professional Growth Company. And we'll just share this, the details for, so the last one, be kind to yourself. So if you need to get hold of Christine, this is Christine's details, but I'm happy to take any questions. And Christine, if you have anything you want to add at the moment.
I mean, just to say thanks ever so much. It was really interesting and really useful, and I hope everybody got something out of it.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you for sure afterwards. So that's all from me.
Fantastic. If you would like to put in the chat box what you're taking away, and David, I know you've got a question there. So if
Just
you just
one
want to put in the
question.
chat box, and if you have to leave, thank you very much. If you've got to leave now, thank you very much. That was fantastic.
Lovely
In
to
fact,
see
let's
everybody.
all do a wave. Let's all just do a nice big wave. Yeah, bye. And I'll stop the recording. Okay.